We've all heard it, right? That moment a kid, totally frustrated, just looks up from their homework and declares, "I hate math." It's a phrase that it makes your heart sink, whether you're a parent or a teacher.
And if you've heard that, I promise you, you are so not alone. It's confusing, isn't it? You see this bright, curious kid who suddenly just shuts down the second a math book opens. But what if that hate isn't really about hate at all?
Yeah, it turns out the science tells us something really interesting. For most kids, this isn't some kind of built-in math allergy. It's a cycle, a negative feedback loop that just keeps spinning. And the best part? Once you see the cycle, you can actually break it.
So that's what we're going to break down today. First, we'll map out that vicious cycle. Then we'll peek into the brain's blueprint for math. We're going to see how fear literally hijacks the thinking process, look at what's happening at home and school, and then, the most important part, how we can break that cycle.
All right, let's dive right in with the vicious cycle. You can think of this as the engine that drives this whole "I hate math" thing. It explains exactly how one tiny little struggle can just snowball into this massive problem.
So here's how it works. It usually starts with something small, a real cognitive struggle. Maybe a kid's working memory is just a bit overloaded and it's hard to hold all the numbers in their head. So what happens? They make mistakes. That leads to frustration and then anxiety. And, what do we do when something makes us anxious? We avoid it. But avoiding math means less practice, which means the skill gap gets wider and wider. And that just makes the next math problem feel even more impossible. Boom, the cycle starts all over again, but this time it's stronger.
Okay, so let's dig into that very first step, that initial struggle. To do that, we've got to look inside the brain and see what's going on at the cognitive level.
One of the absolute biggest factors here is something called working memory. I love this analogy. Think of it like your brain's temporary workbench, right? When you're solving a problem, say 17 plus 24, you're using that workbench to hold the 17, hold the 24, carry the 1, you get it. You're juggling all these pieces at once. Now, if a child's workbench is a little on the small side, or maybe it's just a bit cluttered, things get dropped, steps get missed, and that's where the mistakes and the frustration begin.
Now, for some kids, this struggle isn't just about a cluttered workbench. It's something much more specific. It's a condition called developmental dyscalculia, or DD for short. The easiest way to think about it is like dyslexia, but for numbers. It's a real neurodevelopmental disorder that makes basic number concepts and math incredibly difficult, even for really smart kids.
And this isn't some super rare thing. We're talking about roughly 3 to 6% of all school kids. Let's put that in perspective. In a typical classroom of, say, 30 students, that means there's a good chance at least 1 or 2 of them are grappling with this very real biological challenge every single day.
So, it doesn't really matter if the initial struggle is small, like a working memory issue, or bigger, like dyscalculia. A lot of the time, it leads to the exact same place, fear. And this is where the emotional side of things kicks in and just completely hijacks the entire learning process.
And here's the crazy part. Remember that mental workbench we talked about? Well, anxiety is a resource hog. It just eats up all the space on that workbench. All the energy spent worrying, am I going to get this wrong? Am I going to look dumb? That worry takes up the exact mental space you need to actually do the math. It's this cruel twist. The fear of failing is what actually causes the failure.
And listen, this isn't just a nice idea. The data on this is rock solid. Study after study finds this consistent negative correlation between math anxiety and math achievement. So when you see a number like this, all it really means is that there's a clear, measurable connection. As anxiety goes up, performance almost always goes down. It's a predictable pattern.
Okay, so we've talked about what's going on inside a kid's brain. But what about everything happening on the outside? This is where things get really hopeful, because the environment, both at home and at school, plays an enormous role. And these are things we can actually change. Just think about the vibe in a classroom. On one hand, you have things that crank up the pressure, timed tests, posting scores for everyone to see, focusing only on speed. That stuff just breeds anxiety. But on the other hand, you have a supportive classroom, one where mistakes are treated like clues, where the goal is understanding, not just speed, and where kids work together. That kind of place builds confidence, not fear. And it's not just school. The home environment is massive. Check this out. A really important study found that parents can actually pass their own math anxiety down to their kids. It happens most often when an anxious parent is the one helping with homework. And get this, it's not the helping that's the problem. It's the nervous, anxious energy they bring to it. That's what does the damage.
Okay, so we've laid out the problem, right? We see the cycle, we know what's happening in the brain, we understand the fear. Now let's get to the most important part of all.
What do we do about it? Let's open up the toolkit and look at the real evidence-based ways to break this cycle.
And the great thing is, we're not just guessing here. Scientists have actually tested all kinds of strategies that target different pieces of the puzzle. You got number sense games to build up those core skills. There are specific teaching methods like CRA sequencing for building deep understanding. There's even stuff like expressive writing before a test to help kids manage that in-the-moment anxiety. And yes, there's coaching for parents to help break that cycle of passing on anxiety. There's a tool for every part of the problem.
So what can you start doing like today? It really comes down to small, consistent habits. Play short, fun number games. Always focus on why the math works, not just how fast you can get an answer. Please, I'm begging you, ban the phrase, "I'm not a math person" from your house forever. When you're helping with homework, be a calm, encouraging coach, not a stressed-out boss. Teach them some simple breathing techniques. And maybe the biggest one of all, celebrate the hard work and the smart strategies they use, not just whether they got the answer right.
And really, that brings us to the single most important idea here. The best, most lasting results, they don't come from doing just one of these things. They come from attacking the problem from both sides. You have to build the skills and soothe the fears. You can't just do one without the other. It's about giving them the tools and also making them feel safe enough to use them.
So I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. We put so much energy into teaching the X's and O's of math, the formulas, the steps, the right answers. But what if the very first step, the most crucial step to creating a kid who's confident with math, what if that step has nothing to do with numbers at all? What if it's all about managing fear?